I think that like we overlook how much music actually like coincides with the way that we remember things. And so specifically like a lot of people like hear my music and think that it's just like nostalgically sort of retracing some like 80s arc. And I think purposefully what I'm trying to do is like take my like formative years of learning about music and all that kind of like 80s R&B, 80s funk shit and sort of like figure it and make something that is like in theory like obviously referring to that space and to that time and to that music and to that sound, but also is kind of trying to like play with how I remember that because I feel like when we think about all these artists that are like huge artists from that era, Prince, Michael Jackson, Madonna, whoever, we all think that we share the same understanding of who those people are and what we're remembering. And if you talk to someone and have a very in-depth conversation, it's always so fractured. Like the way that I remember Prince or the way that I remember Michael Jackson is so much different than most of my peers, you know? And maybe there's some like threads that run throughout. But I think for me, that term of memory funk is like this idea, or memory pop is this idea of kind of like restructuring and like actively trying to engage memory with the way that we listen and the way that we like make sounds, you know? Yeah.
How do you remember Prince or Michael Jackson? How do you think it's different?
I think that that's like constantly shifting, you know? Like, I think that if you had asked me that 5 years ago how I remember Michael Jackson, it'd be such a specific answer, and I'd remember like, I'd be like, oh, I remember that song, Remember the Time. I remember my childhood when those songs came out like in the early 90s. But like, I don't actually have, my connection to Thriller and Off the Wall is totally different. I wasn't there when that came out, you know? So I've like, and we all do this with music that we weren't actually experiencing, but still is like prevalent in society. We all create narratives about what that music is just to kind of like make it fit into our consciousness. Because when something's so big, you have to impose some meaning onto it to make sense of it. So also the name Voidwell is sort of like about how the world that we live in is largely just an empty space and we impose meaning onto it, you know, as opposed to being like, here's this meta narrative, here's what I'm saying, and this is it, this is the like objective truth, which I think that when you make art you run into this like tension where you want to kind of create this objective statement, but really it's always shifting, you know, like all these statements are constantly shifting. So it's kind of just being at peace with that and being like, look, I'm making this music, this is like how I feel about it right now, like it probably will shift tomorrow, like I'll feel a different way about like what I'm trying to imply by this specific thing, or I'll see something new that I, you know, that's subconscious, that's like a different part of my memory entirely. But yeah, it's just playing with that idea and not trying to overlook the fact that the brain is such a large thing in how we perceive things, and yeah.
What do you want people to remember about Gordon Voidwell in this territory of your musical career, the music you make now, your most recent mixtape even?
Right. Yeah. I think that the point that I've like always been trying to make is just to sort of like complicate things in a way that makes people feel comfortable. And like when I say makes people feel comfortable, I don't necessarily mean like it's like pandering to people's sensibilities per se, but just the idea of sort of like making songs that on a surface level are like encompass some sort of pop sensibility, and you can always sort of strip away and strip away and strip away and strip away and understand different functions of the song, or different functions of a lyric, or different functions of a sound, or of a drum program. So I think that my like ultimate hope for my own like artistic legacy is just to be remembered for complicating things.
Sure. Complicating things. You use a lot of glitch effects and samples in your
sure.
music. Have you always been interested in the glitch kind of territory, edit and
I think that's
data mosh.
That's pretty like that's come I mean data moshing is such a specific like visual sensibility that feels very of this like last 5 year moment. But I think that what's so like compelling about that sensibility of glitching, data moshing, all those sensibilities that sort of fracture things, they give you an image that feels so complete and then ultimately just shift very quickly or not very quickly, but they're playing with this idea of something that could be permanent and that could be static. And sort of like I think for me, they're changing our sensibilities for just like time and linearity. Wait, why was what led me to that? Yeah, so
Okay.
anyway, I'm really, at this particular moment, I am really into edit-based stuff and glitching for sure. I feel like it just is a part of just our sound, like, sensibility.
Musically, what would you say? Are you on the front end of kind of a new step in your musical career, or what's the next direction you want to go?
Yeah, so I'm actually, this mixtape, the most recent one, Bad Attitudes, came out in part because I've been working on a record that is kind of edit-based, but it's like pretty pop sensibility. I'm working with this producer, Chris Zane, who did this band Passion Pit and like Friendly Fires, Holy Ghost, a bunch of stuff that's really cool. I think that all of it is sort of like breaking away from some norms and also speaking to some pop sensibility. So I started working on that record in August, and I just realized around December that realistically we weren't going to finish it before this upcoming summer. So I had all these kind of holdover songs and fashioned them together to be like a complete collection of songs, which I call the mixtape. But I think that the mixtape sets like a good sort of, it's like an introduction for what the album's going to be. It's pretty, like I would say, like a good part R&B and a good part kind of like dancey funk stuff. But yeah, I think that there's, from what the mixtape is, there's more to come of sort of that, but maybe just cleaning things up a bit.
So I think we'll probably be running a little bit short on time here.
Cool.
What about, so near future, you're at
Yeah.
Moogfest.
Yeah.
What's that like playing at a big festival? And if you could meet anybody that's already there, going to be playing,
Yeah.
who would you like to sit down and have a coffee with?
Nile Rodgers, for sure. Yeah, I think he's playing with Chic, and like they're doing the full band. And I feel like he's really sculpted like a lot of the music that my music is sort of like, citing or like making a footnote for. He's had something to do with. So yeah, Nile Rodgers for sure. Although I'm pretty into MIA too. She's also one of the headliners. I think that she's just consistently done things to complicate the world and to complicate music. So I think both those people be a split. Yeah.
You got anything left here?